In this video, we'll be talking about Saturn in Sagittarius and what it means to all of the houses as well. And so let's go ahead and get into it. But before we start, I wanted to mention that I am doing personalized natal chart readings, which are available on my website, astroseri.com, which is linked in the description. And in those videos, I cover all of your placements, not just one of them. So if you enjoy my videos, you will surely appreciate the readings because they give a comprehensive overview of your personality, which is shown by the ascendant, the sun, and the moon especially. And this really shows how you're perceived by other people too. So I like to talk about that in the reading. And then I talk about your talents as well as your financial astrology and your career astrology. And then finally, your North Node, which is your life purpose and what your soul wanted to learn in this lifetime. And then also, I offer aspect table readings for those that want those as well. And that's a different type of reading where I talk about each of your placements in the context of aspects and what all the aspects in your chart mean. So with that being said, if you enjoy these videos, you will surely enjoy that. And I just wanted to share that because I don't know how long I'll be doing those readings, but at the time of this video, I am currently taking requests. Next, if you end up enjoying this video, then don't forget to leave a like on it and subscribe to this channel to see more content when it comes out. So with that being said, now we can get into the placement in question, which is Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn rules authority and Sagittarius rules education. So Saturn in Sagittarius individuals may attain a position of respect or authority through education, especially education that required patience and discipline and rigor. Saturn rules limitations, and in the sign of Sagittarius, it can limit one's faith and optimism in beliefs in some cases, or they can have strong or rigid beliefs in other cases. And most of the time, that's how it will manifest. In general, those that have Saturn in Sagittarius believe in what is tried and tested, and they mostly believe in reputable, fact-checked information or information that's agreed upon. Saturn is everything that is realistic and down to earth. So those that have this planet in the sign of beliefs, which is Sagittarius, have a more realistic or disciplinarian belief system. Also, Sagittarius represents travel and risk, and Saturn represents karma and limitations. So these individuals that have displacement might experience limitation and obstacles regarding the themes of travel, foreign countries, or taking excessive risks. So these people get punished from gambling, or they experience, bad karma or bad luck from any situations where they've unreasonably risked money. Saturn is taming their risk in this lifetime because it's in Sagittarius, the sign of gambles and risk. And in this lifetime, they find that they have to make more practical and calculated decisions rather than risky ones. Saturn represents challenges and hard work, and Sagittarius represents the father or the guru. And also Saturn shows aspects of the father in some cases. And when this planet is in combination with Sagittarius, this can show that there could have been a difficult relationship to the father in the upbringing. And when it comes to their upbringing and beliefs, and when it came to the teachings of the father or of their superiors, even their teachers, it could have been more rigorous or restrictive in some way. So like their upbringing could have been rigorous or restrictive, and that's what made it difficult with the relationship to the father. But sometimes the father could have been, wanting the best for them, but it's like he was very hard on them. And you'll hear that a lot from those that have displacement, or like even celebrities that have displacement, when they talk about their relationship to the dad. So Sagittarius also represents religion and beliefs. So Saturn in Sagittarius can show disciplinarian tendencies within one's religion. And it can also show authoritarianism and limitations being a part of one's education, upbringing, or religion and beliefs. And generally, when it comes to religion, they can be hard on themselves too. And when it comes to their morality and their beliefs. Because Saturn is where we are disciplined and and hard on ourselves and realistic. So a prominent figure that has this placement is Andrew Tate, and he's a common, well-known figure at the time of this video. And this is somebody that has very disciplinarian beliefs. He is a figure that teaches men, especially, to be more ambitious, and also to improve themselves and not wish for things to be easy. And he uses his own experiences as an example to teach others. So that's kind of what this placement reminds me of, in terms of people that have this placement as well. And Sagittarius represents religion and beliefs, like I was saying, and it also represents fear. And I mean, not fear, it represents change or the unknown, and Saturn represents fear. So this placement can show fear or around change, or around the unknown, or around foreign cultures sometimes. And there could be a fear of stepping out of one's comfort zone, of familiarity in some cases, with those with people that have Saturn in this sign. And sometimes there can even be xenophobia, or like a fear of foreigners or strangers. In other cases, there could be restrictions when it comes to language and cultural barriers in the place that the person lives. So sometimes this could be somebody that moves to a foreign country at a young age, and language becomes a barrier of how they can communicate with the other people. And Sagittarius is all about being understood by others. So there could be a fear or limitations around the sensation of being understood from one's life circumstances at some point. So sometimes Saturn in Sagittarius can show judgmental qualities, because Saturn is very authoritative, and that might have been a quality of the upbringing and of the parents, or the father especially. But also the individual will have judgmental qualities, and this could become a limiting factor in some way, depending on the house that Saturn is in. Because the main limiting effect that this will have is that it will make it difficult to relate or have diplomatic relations with others, due to being judgmental in a certain sense. Most importantly, Saturn in Sagittarius can restrict one's freedom in some way, or their sense of abundance, unless they apply like hard discipline and like rigor and patience towards their objectives. And this is because Sagittarius represents freedom and open horizons, and Saturn is about limitations, and it closes things. And I guess, finally, something that we kind of already covered is that diplomacy can be a challenge for the individuals that have Saturn in the sign Sagittarius. Now, here are a few celebrities with this placement, and I notice a lot of them are major influencers, major celebrities. So this placement can show major success, legacy, or fame as well, because Saturn is about our success, and Sagittarius is about luck or abundance. And expansion is about hugeness. So Madonna, Michael Jackson, Ben Affleck, Mahatma Gandhi, Drake, Martin Luther King, Lady Gaga, Megan Fox, Robert Pattinson, Prince, Amber Heard, Zac Efron, Emma Stone, Lionel Messi, Abraham Lincoln, Che Guevara, Michelle Pfeiffer, Osama bin Laden, Shia LaBeouf, A$AP Rocky, Frank Ocean, Andy Warhol, Kesha, Conor McGregor, Ellie Goulding, Bow Wow, Carly Rae Jepsen, Cassie, and Anne Frank are all celebrities that have displacement. So now let's talk about what displacement means to each of the houses. First house. You could be somebody with more rigid cultural viewpoints, which then become an aspect of your identity or personality, because the first house is about our personality. Saturn in the first house also gives you a more serious, cold, or judgmental first impression. Your opinions, wisdom, and knowledgeability will also lead you to a position of authority and management in most of the work situations that you become a part of. And it's like usually your credentials and your education like becomes a reason why you are promoted to the position of manager or superior. Second house. There can be restrictions to your sense of financial freedom, and there could be this sense of needing to be more careful with your resources than normal when Saturn is in the second house. Also, since the second house rules money and it can indicate our income within the chart, the main limiting factor to one's income can be education, because Saturn shows limitations, and when it's in Sagittarius, it's showing that the limitation is coming from one's education and knowledge in some way. And until one decides to put the effort to learn the proper skills or mastery, they may struggle with financial opportunities and not having the abundance that they crave. Third house. And actually, before we get to the third house, the last thing about second house Saturn is that those that work very hard can achieve a lot of abundance, but they had to work hard to achieve an education or mastery at something. So it's not a financial death sentence, really. But now let's talk about the third house. Your communication carries an air of authority and credibility. You may also be a good communicator and a good storyteller. Early on in life, language could have been a challenge within the communication, or it could have been a barrier because Saturn shows limitations or challenges. So perhaps there was a move or a certain cultural circumstance that made communication difficult or a fearful topic. Saturn shows our challenges and limitations, and the third house represents communication. Those that have this placement will become strict about their grammar and language, especially when it comes to their writing. And they also notice the flaws that other people make in their language and writing. Early on in life, though, you may have been a child of few words for fear of appearing dumb or incorrect, because Saturn shows fear, and the fear is seeming to come from the sign Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about knowledgeability or wisdom. So sometimes you were made to feel that you were too inferior to speak, or you were not qualified by the upbringing or by the superiors in your upbringing. The parents or the father figure could have made you be silent because you were quote unquote not qualified, or you're not smart, or you were like a child. So this kind of mentality can also have been sensed or felt in other ways if it was not coming from the upbringing. Sometimes it could just been a general fear that you had that caused you to be a person of few words, a child of few words. And ultimately it can all be summarized to the limitation of not wanting to appear dumb or not wanting to appear incorrect. So a lot of times, though, this will coincide with the upbringing that you had. Next, we have the fourth house. This shows that the upbringing could have been restrictive or challenging. Perhaps it could have been strongly religious, and generally speaking, there were strong family convictions, especially around education or beliefs. And you were strongly disciplined and taught right from wrong in strong ways, perhaps through the use of fear or punishment, because Saturn is about fear and consequences. In the upbringing, or like the family or relationship to the mother, these things could have been more cold and detached and revolved more so around responsibilities, or a sense of responsibility rather than love and nurturing. Next, we have the fifth house. So within your childhood, cultural differences could have afflicted your confidence. So maybe a move to a new place or to a new country could have, caused cultural differences that afflicted your confidence in some ways, or your sense of self-expression, or your inner child. That's the case for some people. In general, the fifth house rules confidence. And as one grows into an adult, they may play the role of a diplomat, or someone of high status and high credentials, or somebody of high education, because the fifth house shows the role that we play, and Saturn is about respect and authority and importance. And generally speaking, your educational success becomes a part of your sense of self-worth, and it becomes a way for you to receive recognition and admiration, because the fifth house is about recognition. Since the fifth house also represents children, there can be a difficult relationship to children. Maybe it can be regarding cultural differences or having strict cultural viewpoints. Also, Saturn may delay children when it's in the fifth house. no matter which sign that it's in. So that can be another theme. We have the sixth house. And so those that have Saturn in the sixth house in Sagittarius pay a particular attention to detail and correctness. And that's because Sagittarius represents the truth, and Saturn is about discipline, limitations, and rigor. And the sixth house is about attention to detail, and it's about organization. And it's ruled by Mercury, which is all about information. So for one, these people will be very picky about correctness and about facts and about right from wrong. And there could have been very specific guidelines and beliefs that they were subjected to within their upbringing. And sometimes they had very critical parents, teachers, or authority figures that had very specific requirements or like very specific criteria in a variety of scenarios. And this could have went from, simple homework things to how the child was meant to, carry themselves, or like how the child was meant to, clean their room and stuff like that. So anyways, as an adult, you carry this attention to detail on into adulthood, and perhaps it becomes a part of your work as well, your work life, because the sixth house rules work and routine. Next, we have the seventh house. And this placement of Saturn in Sagittarius shows a strong emphasis on communication and agreements, particularly the strong emphasis on agreeing over terminology and over language. This can be a part of one's karma, especially their legal karma or their relationships, because the seventh house rules relationships and law, and it's about agreements. So those that have Saturn, which is about limitations in the seventh house in this sign, sometimes experience restricted freedom due to agreements, responsibilities, or paperwork. So sometimes a paperwork that they signed or like a bad deal that they signed becomes a part of their karma, and they learn not to do that again. Or, sometimes an agreement or a relationship, whether it's professional or romantic, becomes a restricting factor in their life, either due to children or very, concrete responsibilities that arise. And generally speaking, the combination of Saturn and the seventh house and Sagittarius shows that diplomacy, or, being diplomatic, becomes important. And it becomes an important theme of their life and their karma. And, being very clear about terms and agreements. And also, these things become the main limiting factor and cause of responsibilities. So like things revolving agreements, relationships, and terms. So the next house is the eighth house. The eighth house represents debt, and this placement of Saturn in Sagittarius can show the primary limitation and challenge could be regarding debt. And sometimes, since Sagittarius rules freedom and Saturn restricts freedom, it can show somebody's freedom becomes restricted due to financial obligations or towards repaying debts. Also, their freedom can be restricted due to dependency of others, or the individual using the resources of other people, or there could be like strings attached to something that they do that causes them to experience less freedom. Because the eighth house is about all situations where there are strings attached. And it also represents the resources of other people. And that's why it shows debt as well. And it shows tax collectors and stuff of that nature. Finally, this Saturn placement can show a fear of the unknown, because the eighth house is a malefic house and it represents the unknown. And Sagittarius is about risk. And when Saturn is here in this combination, it brings fear to this combination. So these people don't like risk, and they might not like the unknown. And so they might fear transformation or endings. Next, we have the ninth house placement of Saturn in Sagittarius. And this placement will indicate restrictions to travel, language, diplomatic relations, and culture. One may also have a strict or limiting belief system or rigid cultural values. This might become a restrictive aspect of their lives, or could have been an aspect of their upbringing and their relationship to authority. 10th house. With Saturn in Sagittarius in the 10th house, one will have strict moral responsibilities regarding their reputation and perhaps their belief system. Also, in order to achieve a position of success or renown, there comes the need for education and credentials. The government or values of the government that this person is in can be restrictive when somebody has this placement, or it could be their relationship to authority or towards the government. Especially the hierarchy of authority within their careers can be restrictive due to cultural limitations or differing beliefs. And sometimes they have this need to achieve their own credentials and success in order to escape this restrictive hierarchy in the profession that they are in. Next, we have the 11th house. And the 11th house represents friends and associates and things that we are associated to. So that's why it shows causes that we believe in, and it shows groups, and it shows extracurricular activities. And Saturn in general could limit such things. And in this case, it will be due to Sagittarius, which is about cultural barriers or, cultural limitations. One could have difficulty fitting into cultural, for some sort of cultural reason, or from differing beliefs of their peers. Also, the Saturn placement can show that someone can be more rigid or closed-minded. There can also be insecurities around one's individuality or culture, because Sagittarius is about culture, and when it's in the 11th house, it becomes a part of one's individuality. So sometimes their upbringing or their family life makes them unique. And Saturn is about fears, limitations, or insecurities sometimes. And generally speaking, one overcomes limitations to their freedom by becoming more self-reliant and autonomous, because the 11th house is about autonomy. And so once somebody becomes independent or even, self-employed in some cases, that's when they experience the most freedom. And a lot of times this scenario requires a lot of hard work or discipline and patience. Finally, this takes us to the 12th house, placement of Saturn in Sagittarius. And this shows that restrictions to one's faith and belief in the unknown becomes a limiting factor. Also, Saturn, when it's in the 12th house, can create superstitions and fear, because the 12th house is about imagination, and it's about spirituality, and it's about our perception. It's all about the subconscious mind. And Saturn becomes it brings fear to the subconscious mind when it's in the 12th house. So also, traditionally, the 12th house was ruled by Jupiter, and that's because the subconscious is very related to our beliefs. And so when Saturn is in this house and in the sign of Sagittarius, it can show somebody with closed-minded beliefs, or like a fear to take risk due to pessimistic perceptions, or like gloomy or fearful perception of the world. Saturn makes things gloomy, and the 12th house is about our subconscious, and it's about our assumptions. So sometimes these people can have a tendency to assume the worst. And if Capricorn is in the ascendant, this placement of Saturn shows a very creative and visionary person. If Sagittarius is in the ascendant, this placement shows financial loss. So with that being said, that is Saturn and Sagittarius through each of the houses. I hope you enjoyed, and that's all I have for you guys today. If you did enjoy, leave a like on this video and subscribe to this channel to see more of your placements when they come out, and consider getting a reading where I can give a more comprehensive overview of your placements. You won't regret it. If not, I would just talk to all of you guys sometime soon in another video. Peace.